Hello. I'm Me Holland, your podcast host for today. Imagine growing up in a world where the question, where are you from, doesn't have a simple answer. For third culture kids, children raised in cultures different from their parents, this question often sparks a journey of identity, belonging, and self-discovery. So today on Mosaic Mind, we delve into this intricate tapestry with Adika Crémet, an international educator whose life story spans continents and cultures. From her early days in Singapore, where she was born, then she worked in many countries, including France, Denmark, China, New Zealand, and now Vietnam, and I hope I haven't missed anything. Adika has spent over 2 decades nurturing young minds while navigating her own multicultural identity. Welcome to Mosaic Mind, a space where we celebrate stories that shape us, stories of culture, leadership, identity, and the path in between. So I'm May Holland, and each episode is a conversation with someone whose lived experience invites us to think, feel, and grow in new ways. Adika is more than an educator. She's passionate advocate for inquiry-based learning, early childhood education, and diversity and inclusion in schools. Her philosophy, which she calls Educaring, emphasizes the profound impact of empathy and cultural awareness in education. So in our conversation, we will explore how Adika's experience as a third culture kid, so TCK, have shaped her approach to teaching and leadership. I will discuss the challenges and rewards of fostering inclusive classroom and the importance of embracing diverse culture narratives. So this is a conversation about identity, belonging, and the power of empathy. So I talk too much. Now it's your turn. Okay, Adika, so welcome to the show. And my first question, as I ask you everyone, what do you eat for breakfast?
Thank you so much, Mai, for the lovely introduction. Now, that question varies because I have a diverse palate. So depending on certain days, I usually have a Japanese-style breakfast, which consists of rice, a bit of fish, or furikake, and tea or coffee. Sometimes I would go to my usual granola with milk and yogurt and fruit. So it really depends on how I feel when I wake up in the morning.
Awesome. Okay, I like that. So you are an educator at a very special school. Can you tell us more about the school that you are working in not New York, in Hanoi?
I'm very privileged to be working at UNIS Hanoi. It's one of the only 2 United Nations schools in the world. We are based in Hanoi and the other one is based in New York. And it's been a real life-changing experience and a rich experience of learning as an educator here in my school.
It's awesome. So you say one in New York and one in Vietnam. Wow.
Yes.
Okay. So, I better go and visit the UN school then. Absolutely. So I have a few questions here, and I really want us to have a chat and really understand better where you're from, with all what it means behind that question. So you're born in Singapore with an Irish, Japanese, Indonesian, and Dutch roots, right? Have I got it right? Yeah. And my question here is, how has this multicultural heritage shaped your sense of self?
This is a real big question because I think it's still developing. Growing up wasn't easy. It's not a clear-cut answer that I could give anybody when they ask me where you're from or who are you. The first 20 years of my life was probably a bit of a puzzle. And every time I really feel anxious when I get this question because I don't know which one to say. And sometimes I hide away and just said, well, yeah, I'm from here, just to hide. But definitely growing up, I don't really see myself in each of the different cultural background that I have because I'm a third culture kid. I moved a lot. My parents really value education, but also as I've been exposed to different cultures, especially Western cultures in a very early age, I never really understood my Asian side of my culture or the other parts of my culture, just saying that. So I've always called myself a Eurasian because that's what my birth certificate said, and that's what I've been known growing up. And then when I got to New Zealand, and that's really the biggest chunk of time that I've grown up as as a teenager to an adult, I guess. That's when I really discovered my identity, thanks to my encounters and friendships that I've built with different people in New Zealand. New Zealand is also a very multicultural place, and one of my very humbling experiences was meeting Maori friends and Samoan friends who really have strong identity and cultural background that really spoke to me and really questioned my own self in who I am and why am I here, what's my existence, and finding that similarities between cultures is really amazing, because we could all say, oh, we've got this passport or we've got this nationality, but in reality, we all have a lot of commonalities and similarities that we could draw on. It could be as simple as food palette or what we like to watch or sports that we enjoy to play with, and all these different daily mundane life styles or life things that we do every day, our habits. We're actually more similar than different. So I'm very thankful that I've met a lot of positive and empowering people that help me to really nudge myself more to really learn and explore who I am in different ways. I've been, and as an educator, I think I've been really lucky to have different avenues and forms of ways to discover this through PDs or workshops or conferences. For example, ALOC, which is the Association of Leaders of International Leaders of Color, and also working with students from various nationalities, over 65 nationalities, and seeing that image of myself in the students I work with really helped me to feel more appreciative of not just my identities, but also all the identities and cultures around me, which is very special, I think.
I think you work in a very, very rich environment because you see those children, a little bit like you as well. And then, those children also have that sense of belonging. But I want to come back here, look, I have a Mapunamu here. Because my husband is from New Zealand. And I really want just to come back about, what you said about, all those diverse culture that you grew up. And then you mentioned about the Maori culture in New Zealand. So in what ways that, did the Maori culture really resonate with you personally? So what is it that the Maori culture that you don't have in your blood has shaped you as well as the other cultures that you have carried in your blood? What is it about the Maori culture?
I think that's a really good question. So as I grow older and being really deep diving into the Maori culture and knowing Maori people, I think what really resonates with me is the culture of belonging with the environment, with the nature. Like the legend of Papa Tuanuku always gets to me because I'm really passionate about humanity and rights. And I think Indigenous people, not just Maori culture or Maori people, but Indigenous people are the most richest and wisest people on the planet. They really know how to conserve and sustain what we have, and they care so much with an open heart, and they're always willing to sacrifice and work hard to preserve something that's really important to their generations to come. And we're talking about land, we're talking about trees, nature, animals, you name it. And these are things that you can't buy. And the relationships that they cultivate, making sure that the traditions and stories gets shared and passed down through future generations to come. And I think that for me is powerful, because I don't want to be seen or dictated to be put in a box where I'm just this, and this culture, but I'm a human being. And I think the human race is a more better term for all of us than being one race or the other. And because there's so many division and differences right now with what's been happening, the power struggle with status and money and inequality. So I really like how down to earth the Maori culture or the Indigenous culture is, that I resonate a lot with. And one of my heroines is Jane Goodall, because she always said, my favorite quote is, it's not the many differences you make, but what you make must make a difference. You really have to make sure that you have that intentionality before you even do something. And that's always been my value system wherever I go. Like if I'm working in an environment, or if I'm invested in a relationship or doing an action-based work, it has to have good intentionality. If not, it will not be a fruitful one. It has to be a good holistic experience. The Maori culture has really taught me to be grounded and taught me to be just appreciative of what you have around you, because nothing is permanent. I mean, one day you won't have the same things forever. That's what I'm trying to say. Whether it's people, or whether it's objects, or whether it's experiences, we evolve with time. And I think it's that notion of letting go or keep moving forward. And it's not easy for many people. It's not easy for me at times, especially if it's really something close to your heart or sentimental or life-changing. So yeah.
I love that wisdom, Adika. I absolutely love it. I really like that you're expanding, our mindset into thinking, we are more than our passport. We are more than what we have in terms of nationality that, given by our family, our parents and grandparents as well. So if you want to explain, very simply, if people might not be familiar, what is TCK?
So third culture kids is a term that used to describe children or babies born outside of their host country or who grew up outside of their host country. So even though I might have been born in Singapore and I have the passport, but it's not necessarily my home because I've grown up in different countries and certain places are more home to me than my birthplace. So it's really, there's a book written by Dr. David J. Pollock. He's the one, or David Pollock, he's the one that coined the term, the culture kids, and it's just been a phenomenon since. For especially it started off from military brats. They call military brats as a term, but it was coined from a lot of families that moved from their home just to serve as military posts or missionary posts, and then it just grew.
Thank you for clarifying that. So coming back to your career in international education, so you said that you work for the United Nations school, so you have about 65 nationalities for children, in the school, which is absolutely mind-blowing. I'm really wondering, how many languages you listen in in the courtyard every day, that must be absolutely fascinating. So can you let us know a little bit, about your journey? What led you to pursue a career in international education? So not just education overseas, but really international education where the setting is truly, truly, truly international.
I've never actually thought I would be an educator until there was a time in my life where I was exposed to a lot of books, a lot of kids, and someone very dear to me who owned a bookstore, and she allowed me to work there, and I just got really passionate about children's literature. And then at one point she said, would you like to do storytelling with children during the holidays? And I'm like, well, I was still young then. I was not even at uni yet. I said, okay, let's give it a try. And I just felt it was natural and easy for me to just read and interact with young kids in the most fun way. And so a couple of the moms just said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I never really thought about it. And so I'm like, okay, let me see. So I took a gap year and I went to New Zealand, which I never thought would be home for the rest of my 12 and a half years or so, 13 years there. And when I arrived in New Zealand, I quickly decided that, I would like to be a teacher because I've heard so many good things about the educational curriculum. And I went to university. I went to train again. And that's it. The rest was history. And I finished my teaching degree at Victoria University of Wellington. That's where I trained. I worked in a couple of schools. I started off as a training teacher and then became head teacher. And then I became center director, which means I run the whole school at a very young age. I've gone through a lot of growth in a short time because I met amazing mentors in my life in New Zealand. And then at one point, I just realized I need a change because it can be quite stifling being in the same environment for a while. And even though I was very comfortable, I was happy, I had all my network here with good group of family, community, friends. But then something in me said, you need to go out there and look for something else and grow more. And that's when, I joined an international teaching agency for a couple. And then, long story short, I got a couple of job offers and I took the furthest one away, which was Denmark. It's like South Pole to the North. It's like, and I made the decision. I got the job really quickly, and my close friends and family was quite surprised or maybe shocked and said, what are you doing with your life? Why are you going to Denmark? It's super cold and it's super far. But I'm an adventurer. When I was young, I was really a risk taker. I was open-minded. So I'm like, it's okay. I'll go. And with one suitcase, I left. And it was a big culture shock because Scandinavia is not Europe, and it's not New Zealand, it's not Australia, it's not England, it's Scandinavia. And I don't know what the word is, but when I arrived at the airport and I came out, I just realized I'm the only person that do not look Scandinavian. I felt it straight away. I'm not blonde, blue-eyed. Yeah, no, but it was really funny. And but anyway, it was a really great start to my international journey. I'm in education because I really learned a lot being there. I met amazing people. I really loved the Danish culture as well. And it just opened up my mind even more and the way I see people and the beauty of different cultures again. I mean, the Scandinavian culture is really unique in some extent. And I really enjoyed it.
I really want us to know more, maybe after this, let's chat. But absolutely. So you first New Zealand, down south, up north. So you went to Denmark after Denmark, and then you worked in Shanghai and as well as Hanoi. So very rich, very different experiences here. And I really wonder how all those environment, different educational environment, different culture, power structure, in terms of culture, conversation, communication, direct, indirect, all this stuff. I wonder how those environment influence your educational philosophy when you are meeting with little children at school now. How does it shape your philosophy?
Yeah, so it has evolved over the years, of course. When I first became a teacher, I was very focused on curriculum and practices, best practices and quality. Of course, I still have that. But as I get older and as I've moved around the globe and met so many people and so many cultures, I think the most important value for me is to teach from the heart and to lead from the heart. There is a philosophy on this, because we are all connected somehow. And the value of care and the value of intentionality and empathy really shapes how we educate or how we deliver the message in education. I think you can work in the best curriculum, but if you do not have that faith and that belief in that and deliver it with full heart and intention and belief, then you cannot empower children or people around you because you don't have that 100%, belief factor, faith factor. You have to be in it to be able to deliver it. So if you're not in the right place, for example, if your values and your ideology or knowledge and skills do not match, you will not be able to be your best self in any organization or setting. So I always believe that it's important to be in the right place at the right time with the right community around you that you can grow and learn, but also thrive and contribute and be part of a bigger community, and you have that sense of belonging, which means you are safe, you have psychological safety, and you're able to be yourself. And it's all about identity, really, at the end of the day. And I think, sadly, not many, I don't want to say it wrongly, but sometimes identity is often overlooked and grades and curriculum takes more precedence because we're living in a very competitive time and age. But really, if students are not empowered or children are not empowered with being a confident, capable learner and having that identity that they're safe, they're well, they're happy, they can't learn. And this is a very, we have to look at the child as a holistic child, the holistic approach. And there's so many dangers, I call it, or threats around children now with cyberbullying, for example, AI. There's so many things out there that we take it for granted. And as adults, we could navigate with more sense and more responsibility because we're older. But for children, they need that help and that support to really help them navigate their life in a safe space. So I think for me, I'm always trying to learn more and really think about how can I provide that psychological safety and affirm my students' identity through their environment, through themselves, through their cultures, even if it's one part of it when they're with me. Because I think once they are solidly confident and they know who they are and what they're capable of, they have full agency and they will be the most competent learner and individual ever, and they'll be really good in a group setting. So that's the edge, I think, that would really help, me as an educator, but also as students to be successful together. It's a whole collaboration work. It's partnership between me, my students, and the families and the school. So how do we all fit in this in this holistic cycle?
I love it. This is what you're talking before about educaring, which is absolutely lovely. And I'm so happy, absolutely so happy about your word of wisdom. We care a lot, of course, all the parents care about the curriculum being the best schools and going to the best unit, etc. But yes, and we forget what you just mentioned about your identity, and then we keep it inside and then we fit it in. And I'm really happy that you mentioned that as something that you are talking with, the student that you're working with. So when you talk about inclusive education, as you said, just now, when you really talk and practice the inclusivity in your education, within your classroom across cultures, and you're dealing with, the school has 65 different nationalities. How does it look like on a daily basis for, not for you, but, for the children as well? How does it look like for them, to be in an inclusive education system? What does it look like concretely?
Yes, this is a good question. Well, there's always a lot of things in my mind before I make sure that I have an inclusive approach in how I teach or how I represent what I do with my students. First of all, I have a shared goal between Universal Design for Learning, which our school is very big about, MTSS, multi-tiered system support, which means that everyone should be able to access and have equal participation in many things in what we learn. But also I'm very aligned to the SDG, the 2030 goal, which means leave no one behind. And for me, this is very important because we're all different and we learn in different ways. So definitely if you come into my room, there'll be different stations that has different learning goals and outcomes. And this is really to give students an opportunity to try or be competent and capable and confident at something they're good at first before moving to another station that they would take risks and stretch themselves a bit further. And then we rotate and we continue to shift and stretch and extend those different provocations, I call them, or activity. And also being sensible in knowing the environment. How does that look like? I mean, every classroom is different and it all depends on the personality and characteristics of your students. Some classrooms could look very busy and very colorful and vibrant, whereas some classrooms could be a little bit more toned down, very neutral, more spacious. It all depends on the physiology and the psychological ability and characters of the students and the learners. Every year it changes and every month it changes depending on how they grow. So observing is a very important strategy that I use. I observe my students every day. I document their growth and I document their question marks or curious wonderings or where they would be, let's say, stuck at. And then as an educator, I ask myself, okay, how can I help them change or help them grow in a certain way? Of course, I'm lucky to work with amazing teammates, other educators who are really, really good at their job as well, who's knowledgeable and skillful. And we just share and ask questions and really do a bit of research and figure out how can we extend these learners and help them to go the extra mile in a fun way, in an inquiry-based way, in a play-based way, but still with targeted learning outcomes and goals so that they still develop at the age and stage level, and we could help them in a way that they feel confident and comfortable, because that's how children are. They need to have a sense of freedom and a sense of autonomy, but at the same time be given opportunities to make new discoveries. I would say I don't want to say mistakes, but I say new discoveries, because every time they try something and it doesn't work, they need to be given 3 more opportunities to kind of like give them that boost. Okay, I couldn't do this one. Oh, let me have other ways of doing something. It could be the same thing, but 3 ways. So differentiating is a very important way or strategy to help make learning happen for all learners. And that's something I believe in very strongly. And at the youngest age, it's really important to give them as many opportunities to explore and learn and discover, because they are so young and they need that kind of nurturing environment to help them really understand how the world works, because they are learning how to be themselves. So the first stages of life, from taking the first step to having logic, is the first 5 years of a child's life, developing life. So yeah, I'm very privileged to be part of this journey with them. And I always learn something new every day or every year, even though I've been teaching nearly 20 years. So it's a really growing process of learning.
It sounds like I want to go and visit your school. Really want to see this. Sounds absolutely amazing, to have that kind of motivating culturally, but also intellectually and creatively, that kind of space, to help the children just to discover themselves and be who they can be. It seems like all the education system, all the schools should be really preaching that way, really. So thank you. And we're switching a bit of topic here. So you talked a little bit when we were chatting together recently. We talked about our Asianness, and then you talked about rediscovering. So we didn't say discovering, but we have said rediscovering our Asianness. So you rediscovered that Asianness later in life. And I wonder about your journey. What was the trigger for you to say, not because I'm whatever Asian, I'm going just to go on that journey, but what was the trigger for you to go on that journey of self-discovery, of self-leadership, of having a beginner's mind of who you are really? So what was that at the start?
I think the most easiest way to put it is that if I had stayed in Europe or in a Western part of the world where I really grew up a lot in, or stayed in New Zealand or Denmark, I think I would take it for granted and just not want to know more or rediscover my identity. But I think since I moved to Asia, to China, the first time I moved to China, and at that time I moved with my husband. I was recently married, newly married. And that really intrigued me because I realized I'm with another person in my life that's of a different culture again, having to learn something new and live with a new culture. And I also started to see more of myself when I moved to Asia, to China, because there were Japanese people, Korean people, but also, of course, the Chinese people and so many Asian people that I just felt I look kind of like them, and somehow the more I know more of my local friends, I also have similar habits and ways of doing things like them. Although to a lot of my Asian friends, I'm still not Asian enough, which is kind of funny. And which is okay. I kind of feel like I'm the elephant sitting on the fence because if I don't open my mouth or I don't show much of my personality, I could be any Asian. Here in Hanoi, people would talk to me in Vietnamese like 100 miles per hour. And then when I open my mouth and I say, come on, Kong, and they're like, oh, they had no idea, which is funny. But truly, I think, and also because I have a big passion in gastronomy and cooking and food and art. So it really fascinates me how rich the art and food scene culture here in Asia. I'm just impressed and I'm like, oh yeah, this is really fascinating. And so I start to learn more. I start to be more in tune with the language, with the music, for example, with culinary, with arts, and even I'm starting to watch more shows, in these different cultures, and make me feel quite good. And I realized this is the balance or the gap I needed. Than just seeing myself as a Kiwi or a third culture kid or Eurasian. No, I also need to know this part of my life because I grew up I would say quite Dutch in the influence, or quite European, because my dad was a very staunch Indonesian Dutchman who displayed all those characteristics, and still like a lot of the things I got from him and my Oma still stays with me. So I mean, I still love my cheese and I'm still very good with math and in those cliches. But now and now that I'm in Vietnam, so I had 7 years in China, that really opened up my whole entire Asianness. It's like opening a big treasure chest and this is one part I've never seen into. And now I'm here, I feel even more Asian. I don't know how weird this sounds, but I feel more Asian than ever before. And I'm comfortable with it. I don't feel at all weird or strange about it. It comes naturally. And I think it's kind of cool, but it's kind of also strange for me because I've never really had this thinking when I was growing up.
So that is so interesting that you mentioned that, like you are feeling more Asian when you are in Asia. So it's like you say that China was the trigger really. So how can it be or not, or can it be challenging or not to be in between? Because you have many in betweens actually. So how is it really, on when you come back home after your work and then you reflect? How is it?
It depends on different perspectives. So, I mean, definitely I've realized that at this age, I'm a colored woman of age, and working or living in different countries, it definitely hit me now that there are certain things in life that are not in the same equity terms be it in terms of profession, like career, like job build hunting, for example, or when you go to certain places, it really depends on how you dress or how you look like. I mean, those are subtle, I call it subtle microaggressions or subtle discriminations that people often do not associate or realize. But I quickly picked it up because I know and I read a lot in this work, and I do work with experts around me that share similar experiences. I think it helps inform me of my actions and my behaviors and my thinking and what I say, and really know myself, my identity, and where I am and what I can bring to or add to a situation, whether it's a group of people or it's an organization or it's a social network, because people are all they all come from different backgrounds and different perspectives and different experiences, so I don't believe in one size fits all. I believe that instead of being sensitive and only focusing on what people might say about me or think about me, I let it be, because people should have their opinion and be able to say what they want or think about what they want. But I think what's important is how I see and how I feel about who I am and what I do and what I say, because they're not me and I'm not them. And just to be kind, I think being kind is important, and being clear is important, and being respectful. So yeah, there've been good experiences where at times it's an advantage because I'm seen as a foreign local. I don't know, it's a funny term, but in the book there is different names of a third culture kid. Often I'm a chameleon because I really settle easily in a different culture, a different country quite quickly because I'm used to it. Sometimes I'm a mirror, so I reflect their culture because I just assimilate really quickly, and then I'm able to just reflect what they do, and especially when I go back to Europe. And here I feel more like a local foreign or foreign local. I don't know how to say this, but I can be a foreigner in 1 minute, and then I can be a local in 1 minute, because I have two ways of thinking now, my Asian side and my foreign side. So when, as a teacher, it helps me, especially when I talk with families about, especially, educational expectations. I can tell them I also came from a kind of an Asian competitive background, but then coming from the holistic side, on the other side, that's also important, like for my Western thinking. So that kind of helped me in how I navigate life and work. And yeah, it made me stronger and more resilient, because I don't worry too much about what people put me or label me, whether they call me small eyes or they I've been called many things in my life, mango, coconut, you name it, banana. But then I realized, I can be my own banana if I want to, but I'll be a great banana. Like, I'm not going to worry about that, and this is how I advise my students if they feel their friends are not being kind with them or something. I say, you know what? Let them say what they say, but you need, you are a great person. What do you think of yourself? So I think a lot of this comes from, you have to be around good people. You have to have a very clear intention and mindset, and you need to know your identity. Again, it goes back to identity. Who are you and what can you bring, and do you fit in? And if you do, how do you belong? How do you belong? And that's the question, always, belonging and inclusivity. So it's still a learning in progress, because everyone will treat you differently wherever you go.
Yeah, I mean, I hear so many words of wisdom from you here. You're talking about belonging, you're talking about inclusivity, talking about resilience and identity, and that's what you pass on. Your self-leadership and self-discovery for yourself. This is what you pass on to those children as well, which is absolutely wonderful, absolutely wonderful. So, I really I'm very curious. I know we chatted together. So, future aspirations. Okay. So you mentioned dreaming of working in Geneva in the long future. Can you tell us more about that dream? What draws you to think about that city? What kind of role? What is it at the global scale?
Yeah, I mean, amongst my friends and some of my colleagues, they've always called me Switzerland because I like to be peaceful. And why I really love and affiliate with Geneva is because Geneva is an international city, but it's also the city of peace, because a lot of NGO is a UN city and a lot of good works happen in Geneva, and it's very multicultural and international. And every time I visit Geneva, it feels like home. Like, I feel I belong. I feel like I don't stand out. I'm not a tourist. I could speak the language. I could navigate easily. There's just so many people like me. And there's a lot of variety and diversity in everything, from food to recreation to education to everything. And I really feel that that's who I am. And my aspiration one day is to go into human rights, into humanitarian work, but still focusing on education. And I'm also contemplating on leadership in education to pursue that more so that I could hopefully combine humanity work, rights work, and educational leadership together. I'm still in exploring in these areas, and I think I'm in the right place at the moment to grow those skills and knowledge and talents. And I'm very fortunate to work amongst really great people at the moment, and I have really amazing mentors in my life. But I hope in the next few years, when my time in Hanoi is up, that I could move there with an opportunity to work for a UN agency or NGO or a humanitarian aid or a school, and another international school that has the same values and ideologies as myself, so that I could bring and contribute to the school, to the community, to all the learners, And I'm a lifelong learner, and I also believe in change. So, things can evolve, things can change. Yeah, I take one day at a time. While I have goals and dreams, I also know that my late aunt used to say, she's very wise, that you need to look at your both feet in front of you and see where you are at now and focus on that journey to get to the other journey, to the other side. So each day counts. So that's all I'm focusing on now.
Thank you very much. You talk about, a lot of concept today, and I really want you just to narrow down only to one. So, that the podcast that we're doing today is called Mosaic Mind, and the meaning of it is, is how you can put all those pieces together so then they make sense. So if you want to give one piece of advice for the people that you have inspired, obviously today, what would be that piece of advice to have a mosaic mind like you? What would be one advice that you would like just people to take away from today?
The word that really resonates with me is multilateralism, because we need to think global, because we are all global citizens, and we should always think beyond our capacity. Not because I'm saying that you have to be big dreamers and not be able to achieve anything, but if you're open-minded, you're internationally minded, and you think of ways of uniting people together and working, whether it's small projects or whether it's a big group, but the power of people and the power of relationships are really important, because without each other, you can't move things, you can't move mountains. Not that that's the goal, but we are part of a bigger group, a bigger collective. We're not an isolated being. And so I really value people around me, all the people that have shaped me in my life, and just that opportunity, knowing that the mindset of growth and the mindset of opportunity and taking risk, because if you don't put yourself out there and you don't give it a try and not be easily discouraged, you can go far. And intentionality. I know I'm giving a lot of words, but I think intentionality goes a long way if you really want to impact yourself and other people.
I have learned a lot of things today, Adika. Really, really thank you. And can you tell me a little bit more, because I'm curious. Adika, so can you tell me a little bit more about your name?
From what I know from my past generation, from my grandparents and my parents, Adika is a name that's quite versatile. It means something in Japanese, but it's also, if you take away the A at the end, Adik means little brother or sister in Indonesian, in Bahasa Indonesia. But in Japanese, in katakana or hiragana, I think there's another meaning about a precious one. But I don't know, but I know that my name is quite unique, because I don't have any other people with the name, so I need to behave, I guess. Usually I'm like, I need to be good because people will know my name. There's not many people with my name. But I'm grateful for my name. It took a long time for me to really understand or embrace my name as well, because of the differentness and that it stood out. Like, I wish my mom would just call me Sarah or Mary, or, like something so normal. So that, if I were to go back in time, that the name also put a lot of pressure on me growing up. But in saying that though, now I really like my name. I think it's easy to spell, easy for everyone to call. And yeah, it's unique.
And there's
so
meaning.
I'm grateful. Yeah.
Well, Adika, absolutely. You're my first Adika. I have never met any other Adika, and I absolutely love our conversation today. So we will put on the information on the podcast how to reach if you want to talk to you more about experiences TCK or whatsoever, or about the school. And we will put obviously underneath. And in the meantime, for all our listeners, if you liked this podcast today, remember to subscribe and share to the people who might be inspired, to understand more about what Adika talked about today. And I think that's very important that we talk beyond, diversity and inclusion. We have to talk also about identity and belonging. So Adika, thank you very much for today. Thank you for your time, and greetings from Australia to Hanoi. And we're going probably to meet soon in Ho Chi Minh City. Thank you for your time. Bye.